you could perhaps answer that, that would be great. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Fairly straightforward, as the convener said. This is obviously on the back of the discussion we had after the last licensing committee meeting. So it's a very brief report. The main part of it is obviously a 3.2, where we've made the suggestion that in order to give applicants for an exemption a little bit of clarity, to suggest that any medical evidence that's submitted in support of an exemption request must clearly state that it's the opinion of the medical professional that it's the type of vehicle which is causing or exacerbating the condition. Obviously, the reason for that is there are other avenues. There's private hire and what have you, in terms of other ways around that, if it is, or that's for the vehicle. It's so there was a suggestion at one point that we be a little stricter. I know it was discussed at some point that we should maybe look at specifying whose medical opinion it should be, as in a minimum standard. My own opinion on that from a legal standpoint is I'd be very nervous about that. None of us are medically qualified. I think if we get something from a medical practice that says, in my professional opinion, in my opinion, that would be enough. Because we would need to be very careful about specifying who can and can't diagnose medical issues, because obviously none of us are qualified to do it. So happy to have a discussion around that if that is an issue for some members, but that's my view on that. The other thing to say is this would obviously be guidance. It wouldn't stop people putting things in. They would still come to yourself, but obviously this will almost be like a baseline. They'll all still have to be determined on its own merits, but this will give both applicants and yourselves something to refer to, and hopefully it'll mean that, and I'm not saying that the ones we're getting are not genuine, but it will mean that we've got that clarity for applications for exemptions, particularly when we're obviously trying to move forward with the mixed fleet policy as well.
Thank you, Mr. Munro. Probably for housekeeping and belt and braces, I should probably go through the agenda before we get questions. So does anyone have a declaration of interest or transparency statement to make? I'm seeing a lot of shaking heads, so that's no. And obviously there were no deputations for today. So I've seen a few hands go up. So if I could go to Councillor Van Sweden first, and then Councillor MacLeod, I'll be to you next.
Yes, I guess my first thing that comes to mind is we had one a wee while ago that was written by the physiotherapist as opposed to the GP. Are we going to include a physiotherapist as the qualified medical practitioner as well?
I mean, that'll be one for yourselves to discuss. I don't see why not, to be honest, and they have maybe not a medical degree as such, but my gut would say that they would fall within the remit of medical professional, but that's one for the committee to determine.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor MacLeod.
Yeah, I suppose just on that, convener, just what Councillor Van Sweden said is that actually probably physiotherapists are more have more expertise in certain back injuries than GPs. GPs tend to have an overall expertise on everything, and sometimes you can miss that. So, I mean, to take that point, I think it's very valid that Councillor Van Sweden's made, that I think we should look at what physiotherapists are doing. To come back to what I was going to say, I mean, I think, Sandy, I raised this issue probably about a year ago with you, because I was, like everybody else, was aware that there were more and more cases, if you like, coming to committee with people wanting exemption, and that was really quite concerning. I wasn't at the last licensing committee, so I'm sorry if I missed that and I wasn't part of the discussion. So if I've missed anything, I apologise. But yeah, I mean, I'm really pleased that we've got, or trying to get some clarity about that. Is there any evidence, Sandy, that, I mean, even by hearsay, that word is going round the taxi fraternity that this is what, you know, if you do this, this is what's going to happen.
There's no, I guess, statistical evidence other than the numbers seem to be increasing. As you've said, in the past year or so, they were quite few and far between previously, and it did seem to be that after a couple were granted, we got a lot of similar requests in the next few committees. So, I don't have any evidence other than obviously pattern recognition. Almost, it's I you know, there's nothing for me to say that that's the case, but it might be a reasonable assumption that obviously the meetings tend to be public, although those ones will probably be in private because they're to do with medical conditions.
I suppose as well, Councillor MacLeod, if I could add on the back of that, a recent meeting, obviously we got the report from the compliance officers, and it did indicate that there was obviously an increase in the amount of saloon drivers, so that's indicative of what we're seeing coming through with that push for exemptions. So and it's one of the reasons why we've had this discussion. And just to reassure you, Councillor MacLeod, obviously your submission and also that of Councillor McGregor's was obviously taken into account when we had that discussion that you were unable to come to.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if Councillor McGregor's got his hands up because his pen's been up and down, but he hasn't got his hand up. So I'm going to take Councillor Henrickson in first, and then I'll come back to you, Councillor McGregor.
It's actually Councillor Copeland that wants to speak, so.
Okay, I'm not sure he can speak because he's not a member, but I'll just
on the reserve. I just thought I'd have.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's possible.
Right,
but I'll just check with Mr. Monroe.
No, unfortunately, I think that's right. Given this is a committee decision, it should just be the members on the committee today that obviously contribute to the discussion before the decision. Apologies.
Apologies, Councillor Copeland, for that. Councillor McGregor.
Thanks very much, Convener. I think, yes, you definitely want a professional who's medically qualified to say, in my professional opinion. Having a locum who's never met the guy before says, this man tells me that, is quite clearly not a substitute. Obviously, it's harder now since we don't have the same continuity of GP and medical supervision. But, you know, I think if a doctor says, in my professional opinion, this is a problem, then I don't see how we can do otherwise. So, thanks.
Thanks, Councillor McGregor. My question is around about the applications that are yet to be determined. I'm just looking to get some clarity on if the recommendations were to be accepted by the committee today, what would happen to those applications that are waiting to come to perhaps the next licensing committee or any future ones?
Well, to be honest, that will be down to them. What we will do is we will write to everybody who has an application in, just advise them that this meeting has been held and provide them with a copy of the guidelines. They'll be very short. Obviously, paragraph 3.2 of the report is very, very short, and it's up to them as to whether they want to carry on with their application or if they want to maybe withdraw it and seek additional evidence to support their case. As I said previously, it won't stop them necessarily coming to yourselves, but it will give yourselves a more solid basis for making decisions on them.
Thanks for that. Councillor MacLeod, would you like to come back?
Yes, thanks, Convener. You see, I think that's a great way forward, and I think once word gets round that we are, if you like, clamping down on just facetious kind of injuries, if you like. I mean, I think if you remember a committee probably about 6 months ago, with a chap who said, "Yeah, I can't do that," and I suggested that, how was you going to lift a suitcase out of a car? And he said, "Oh, I'll ask somebody next to me or a member of the public to help me." And I think, sorry, that's no use at all. I mean, that's, a part of a taxi driver's job is as well as pushing wheelchairs, is to put luggage into cars. And if they've got injuries, then frankly, off the record, I think they should be looking for a different job.
Well,
That's just me.
Councillor
That's off the
McClung,
record.
we're unfortunately not off the record because this meeting's been recorded.
Yeah. Okay.
Is there any further questions? Not seeing anybody. So if we can just turn to the recommendations, which are on page 3 of our papers. Are we happy to approve those?
Yep.
Yes.
Is anybody not minded to approve them? No, I'm not seeing anybody. Okay. All right, that's fine. And I think that concludes today's meeting. So thank you very much for everybody coming along. And obviously we've got that assurance that people that have an application in will get provided with the guidance that's been agreed by committee today. So we will obviously see how that reflects on what comes to committee in December. Thanks.
We'll draw something up, but we'll get it. We'll try and get it on the website as well, just so that it's there for access for people who want to apply in the future as well.
That's great. And could I just check, Sandy, before you go, that we will also share that with the taxi and private hire consultation group, so
yeah,
they can
absolutely.
share it through their members.
Yeah,
that's
we
great.
can circulate it via them and ask them to disseminate it further. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that, and thanks everybody. Bye now. Bye.
Before you go,
Well,
too late. Sorry. See.